this time every year about our budget. We present the budget to our budget to the mayor about our continuity of budget, what it takes to run the school district at the same level, what would the cost to be that and for that to occur. And then we sent along our budget priorities. We submitted that in April. We voted on that and submitted it to the mayor's office in April. The mayor gave his initial allocation when he filed his budget on May 1st. And then now we have an initial allocation. Now that's on to council, the Metro Council's purview. Chair Porterfield will submit her substitute budget. We are waiting for that to be filed. Usually that gets filed at the beginning of June. And from there, we'll see what adjustments and amendments the Metro Council will make. From there, we will get another budget summary with the final allocation, and then we will finalize our final version of the budget. So we are still early on this process, but this is the first draft of budget that we have that I'm requesting the board to pass and to approve. So we have a working budget to present to the Metro Council for our budget hearing, which would be this Thursday at 4:00 in Metro Council chambers. You're more than welcome to join or probably watch on Metro 3 so you don't have to avoid traffic. And so that's what we are going through to this. We have Dr. Battle to present the budget and the summary of changes that we have on document 1, and then I'll entertain a motion to approve. So Dr. Battle.
Thank you so much, Budget Chair Player. I'm going to actually invite Jorge Robles up to the podium to lead us through our budget presentation as CFO. And so he's going to walk us through where we were as of our last budget conversation and how we have adjusted a few things now that the mayor has filed his ordinance, and then kind of talk about some of the unknowns that we are still waiting to solidify after Metro Council does their work as a council over the next few weeks. So with that, Chief Robles, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Battle. We're Chair Elrod, as Chair Player, members of the board. I'm excited. This is my first time addressing you formally. Thank you. So as Dr. Battle referenced, what we're going to do today is give you an update from what you saw on April 9th that incorporates the changes that we found necessary to do based on the allocation on the budget that the mayor proposed to City Council. So this slide that you see here, it should look familiar to you and is actually an equivalent as what you saw on April 9th, which actually is our continuity of operation ask. As a reminder, the amount that we asked did not include the COLA adjustment. So this is, the summary of what we had asked and not include the COLA. So since then, since April 9th, essentially as Vice Chair referenced, the mayor submitted the proposed budget to City Council. And that, he set expectations around an economy that it was leveling off, and with that expectations of a flat revenue and flat expenses for the city. So what we were allocated in the budget proposal the mayor presented was an additional $41.6 million for our operating budget, plus an $18 million one-time fund that is for the purchase of textbooks. What that $41.6 million essentially allows us to do is to cover the cost of living increase at a 3.5% for all of our employees. So that includes certificated support and child nutrition, all the step increases that we had originally asked for in the continuity of operations, and to cover all the contractually obligated inflationary increases, which is approximately $6.8 million. So with the information that we have currently available to us, as Vice Chair Player referenced, there's still a lot of things that will happen between now and the end of June. We are bringing this budget to you forward so that it can be approved and then presented to City Council for their consideration. So this is the proposed new budget, which is what you have as a summary on the book that we proposed to you. So in the first page, This is outlined there. So I'm going to talk about the specific changes from what you saw on April 9th. So one of the main changes is that, as I referenced, the funds for the textbook adoption are now in this one-time allocation that comes from the Metro General Fund surplus, and will allow us to do our textbook adoption. We are covering our contractual inflationary increases for $6.8 million. We had originally anticipated approximately 13.6. This will help us. We will be focusing on the contractually obligated inflationary increases. As referenced in the budget summary, there's approximately $15 million of budget cuts that we'll be identifying as the final budget is considered and approved by Metro Council, but also as we get the final TISA allocations in June. So there's that aspect of our funding that comes from the state that we still have period 8 and period 9 that student counts that need to be calculated. So we won't know that amount until late June, as you're all aware. So we'll be working through that, identifying those over the next few weeks. We do also, as you are aware and we have shared with you in the past, have access to these one-time funds that will be and have planned to leverage over the next fiscal year. One is the ESSER bridge funding that comes from the MNPS fund balance, and that is that we have been referencing the $77 million that we'll be using for strategic investments to continue the critical work that is supporting our students. As a note, 11 million of those still require Metro Council allocation, which is a process that should take place in the near future. And we also are going to leverage and continue to leverage the remaining ESSER federal funding that we have received. So we're working on investments that actually we can leverage an extension on the liquidation period to use those funds over next year. But also want to make you aware that we have recently been informed by TDOE. There was an error in the calculation of allocations that goes back several years. And MNPS is set to receive additional ESSER dollars one time as well. We don't know the exact amount, but that is also going to play a role in our ability to continue to fund the work over the next year. And what you see here is we listed some of the essential programs and examples of the key programs that will be funding or leveraging this one-time funds to support over the next fiscal year. And just to close out, you are all probably aware of this, but as the mayor presented the budget to City Council on May 1st, the next key date, as Vice Chair Player referenced, is this Thursday, when Metro Council will hold the budget hearing, and then the expectation is that they will vote on that on June 18th, which then will come back at the end of the month and share with you any updates from that or any modifications that may be necessary. So that's a brief overview on the updates that we're proposing to you, and I'll turn it over to see if there are any questions.
Chief Robles, Budget Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
So we can enter discussion. I'll entertain a motion to approve the 24-25 operating budget.
Motion to approve.
So motion, is there a second? Motion by Ms. Mays. Is there a second? Second. All right, blocking, all right. All right, discussion. Is there any discussion or questions? Yes. Can you go back one slide, please?
Yeah.
And then just looking at the, some of the numbers that we didn't have ahead of time, like the COLA and all of that, can somebody who's on the insurance trust talk to us a little bit about that 12.8% increase?
One of the board members who
Yeah, if somebody could kind of give us a run through on what they told us about that and why it's at that point, just for our information.
Thank you. So as, you know, so ever since COVID, more employees have been accessing just because the ability to access medical services. And because of that, naturally, there has been medical developments of our employees, some of various medical levels of seriousness, and those medical costs have increased. And just because of the volume of employees that we have, we've received that. And we had some catastrophic illnesses that happened to some of our employees and families that increased the medical cost. And with inflation, that did not, that aspirated the cost. And so we see right now there's a 12% increase just because we're a self-insured pool, and the increase of medical services have gone up just because of delayed through COVID, and receiving consistent medical services to treat the various parts had to. So part of it is just one of the lingering unintended consequences of delayed medical services help of that. And then, and so now we're just catching up to that just from our insurance. It's something unavoidable.
Yeah, no, I understand. And I think it's important that we talk about that so that we understand why we're seeing numbers like that and that they're going up. It's such a high percentage when that hasn't necessarily been the history. I know this one seems like one of the higher increases we've seen in years past. Has there been any discussion in the meetings about trimming back any areas, or what has that?
We're not looking into any immediate change. We're looking at how can we making sure that there's a level of quality, that, by state law, we have to have an insurance plan that's equal to the state. We have our separate own we have a separate from the state, but it has to be equal to it. So we're just ensuring that we're taking all options to make sure that we are controlling costs as best as we can, and to make sure that our employees aren't impacted to the least degree. But we're constantly evolving and looking at all options on the table to make sure that we can provide the best quality health care given the environment that we are. But we are looking at other options to make sure that we are our employees have health care, but also that it's fiscally manageable. And that's our concern of walking that delicate balance. Of making sure there's the standard that the state requires, but also fiscally, we can make sure that we keep our insurance cost at a level that we can maintain.
Yeah, that's understandable. And it's, I definitely think that it is something we need to kind of talk about, because it is, like you said, in this way, it's unavoidable. It's not that we're making choices to inflate it. It's that this is what is happening as a result of the world burning around us.
I'll even use my own example. I am on the insurance, on the teacher's insurance plan. I had my bout with breast cancer right after COVID. So going through radiation and going through surgery, I'm one of those many employees that have done. And so it's one of the things of just being postponed because of COVID of that issue. So we just had, more people do that. And we had some extreme cases where we had some very high level cases of life and death cases that happened that we needed to take care of.
Yeah. And I do think it's important to note that, if you compare our insurance to most of the private insurances around us, we do such a good job of covering most things that we can. And I think you would know better than I would. And I know that Ms. Masters also, because she was on the insurance trust earlier. But we really do go out of our way to make sure that we're providing a great service for their health outside of the classroom and outside of the schools. And that's really important. And it is an expense that I think is necessary. It's one of the things that's supposed to help balance out not necessarily getting the highest pay that you would love. So, and then my last question would be, I know that I've been talking to some of our council members about a COLA that's a little bit higher. I didn't know if that is something that anybody else had been talking about advocating for. right now, this is what we've agreed upon and this is what's in here. But I know that council also gets the opportunity to make their own decisions about how they want the money to be spent and how they would have to move it around a little bit. And there's been some talk about trying to advocate for at least a 4%. I didn't know if you had heard anything more about that among other people, if we can, direct other people to also advocate for that outside of us.
I mean, as a former union member, always people to advocate for their own benefit.
Exactly.
However, this is a flat year, and my biggest concern as budget chair is that we do not have a repeat of last year.
Yes,
And
yes.
so, and I'm sure other elected officials have the same concern. And I am cautious to guarantee any
Well, I'm
of
not
that.
guaranteeing
I know,
anything.
but I want to be explicit.
Yes.
I want to be explicit that, and I know that it's something that's being explored.
Yes.
The question is, the reality of it is one thing, but, at 1%, as we know, it's not an insignificant amount.
No,
but,
it's not.
That's up to Chair Porterfield and what decisions she would like to make. And we just encourage council members to make sure that they do not forget us, and that our school employees are also part of Metro General Government, or part of Metro government as whole, and that we do that. So that's something I will be inquiring about, but as the status of it, I still don't know about the final status of that, but I know it's
Yes.
it's requested by some council members and being explored.
Yes, yes, and that's when the ones that I've been talking to, I think we need to make it clear that it isn't, there's not extra money out there for it. Something would have to get moved from somewhere else to make that happen. So if that is the case, then that would be at the discretion of Chair Porterfield at the city council. So if that is what you're interested in, then I suggest you reach out to the budget council, the budget committee from the council, to ask about what are the options and how can we do this in a way that supports every employee, not just one group, but all of them across the board. So those are the two things I really wanted to highlight and talk about. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Ms. Mays and then Ms. O'Hara Block, and then Dr. Medine.
Thank you. I just have a question about the TDOE calculation error. First of all, yay that we're getting additional funds, but do we have any idea what the error was or how it was caught?
My understanding is it has to do with the allocation formula, but I don't know the details of, how, I think it's something that compounded year over year as to, what percentages are allocated to what district, or, based on the factors that they consider. But I want to get back to you on the details.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm just excited that additional funds will be coming to us, even if it's $5, yay us. Thank you.
Chair Player, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, we recently had a parent advisory council meeting, and the budget chair for the council, Councilmember Porterfield, was there and talked a little bit about some of the outgoing forecasts. So we have a number of things here in one-time funds, and I think a lot of them are things we'd like to be able to figure out how to keep if we can, but we're in a tight budget year this year. Any sense of how we might see this going forward and what things we need to be thinking about now for next year even?
So at the PAC meeting, Chair Porterfield mentioned how in the natural budget cycle, this year is the tightest fiscal year for the city right before a year of an appraisal. And once you get to a year of appraisal, you can really kind of start thinking more forward thinking, because you have a better sense of tax receipts coming in. And so a lot of us need to think about what the immediate needs are, and then also what that looks like in the future of as we kind of expand services or looking at what we're doing, being thoughtful of what's the immediate needs versus needs going into the future as we go through the reappraisal process, and we'll have new tax funds coming into the city coffers.
Thanks. It's helpful context, I think, for folks as we are all thinking about what's happening currently and what will happen in the future. So can I just, if I were to make sort of a summary of where I think we are, and I want to just check, it's like a check for understanding. we are at this point making some very slight adjustments to what we put forth a month ago. And there are a number of things still up in the air, so therefore there are possibilities for some changes in multiple directions probably between now and when we finalize budget. But this is the budget that we have to go forward to council. At the same time, we could still hope that there's more money that gets found somewhere, either by the council or at the state level, but we shouldn't be banking on any of that.
Correct. So this is the first, this will be the first draft. Council will make their allocation. We're still getting our allocations from the state finalized. And we also have numbers that the mayor gave us, but also, as before, we weren't sure about some of the IT charges and some of the charges as the Metro Council settles up their, Metro Finance Department settles their books. We're also getting more numbers as we end. So this is the first real draft that we have, given the mayor's allocation, but also we do still have allocations coming from Metro Council, how that shift will look, and then also finalization from the Tennessee Department of Education that was discussed. Yeah. Yes.
Can we
Hold on, we had, sorry.
I was
Yeah.
going to ask for a copy of that, if we could have a copy of that slide.
Yes, we'll get a
that'd be
copy
great.
to
Thank you.
advise everyone.
That's all.
Dr. Nabar McKinney.
Thank you. I just have a really quick question related to the TISA allocation, Dr. Battle. Do we see any drastic increase or decrease in the allocation for TISA, or are we pretty in alignment with what we expect to have with that allocation coming forward, or do we know at this point? We're in alignment to where we normally are this time of year. We've not received our final TISA estimation to date, so we are hopeful that between now and the time we receive or hear council's approvals for the budget, that we'll have that final estimate. And I'm looking to my experts to come. Yes, so we've not received the final TISA estimate just yet. Okay, and just as a follow-up to that question, with the TISA allocation, we are allocated a year behind, correctly? So the allocation is not for this current, or is it based on this current school year's numbers or the previous school year's numbers? So because the TISA formula changed a year ago at this point, of course, now we're funded based upon the unique needs of every student, with the base being based upon the enrollment of the number of students we have, which lags a year behind. A year behind. Okay. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Okay.
I'm sorry, just to follow up to that, it lags a year behind. So if we got an increase in the number of students within our district for this school year, those funds wouldn't be allocated for that increase in the number of enrollment. It'd be for the following year, correct? Gotcha. Thank you.
All right. I see no more questions or comments. I will call for a vote. All in favor of adopting the fiscal year 24-25 operating budget, raise your hand. All right, it's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much, and we will see council on Thursday afternoon. Thank you, Chief. We appreciate you.
Thank you very
And
much.
Great job on your first time.
Appreciate that.
We're adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.